Lyra Solon was born under a sky that seemed undecided about her fate. On one side of the galaxy, humans whispered about her with suspicion. On the other, the Vailith dismissed her as an anomaly, a mistake never meant to exist. She lived in the shadow of two vastly different worlds, belonging fully to neither. Her life began as an experiment, a union forged not out of love but necessity. A human scientist named Dr. Elena Solon had worked tirelessly alongside a Vailith diplomat to create a bridge between their species. What resulted was Lyra, a fragile yet extraordinary child who carried within her the hopes and fears of both races. The Vailith were known for their towering elegance and cold intellect. Their society thrived on precision and order, where deviation from norms was considered weakness. To them, Lyra's very existence disrupted the harmony they held sacred. She looked too human. Her skin lacked the shimmering opalescence of pureblood Vailith, and her eyes, though flecked with faint traces of silver, remained mostly brown like her mother's. Yet she wasn't entirely human either. Her hybrid nature gave her abilities no ordinary human possessed: heightened senses, quick reflexes, and an uncanny knack for understanding patterns invisible to others. But these gifts only deepened the divide. From the moment she could walk, Lyra faced ridicule. At the prestigious Vailith Academy, where young elites trained to uphold their species' legacy, she became the target of cruel jokes. Other students mocked her clumsy attempts at mastering their intricate dances or deciphering their complex mathematical puzzles. "You're too slow," they would sneer during physical exercises. "Your mind is too simple," they taunted when she struggled with advanced equations. Even teachers, bound by tradition, treated her more as a burden than a student. They assigned her menial tasks while praising the achievements of her peers, reinforcing her status as an outsider. Humans weren't much kinder. When Lyra visited Earth with her mother, she often felt like a curiosity on display. People stared at her unusual features: the slight luminescence of her skin, the faint hum of energy that sometimes radiated from her fingertips, and whispered behind her back. Some saw her as a symbol of collaboration gone wrong, proof that mixing species led to chaos. Others feared what they didn't understand, convinced her alien traits made her dangerous. Few bothered to look beyond surface differences to see the girl beneath. Despite the hostility, Lyra clung to hope. She believed there was purpose in her uniqueness, even if she couldn't yet define it. Her father, Ambassador Callan Vorthus, had once told her stories of how stars are born, not through perfection, but through collisions of cosmic dust and gas. "Great things come from chaos," he said, his voice softening despite his usual stoicism. Those words stayed with her, a quiet reminder that being different didn't mean being worthless. Her days passed in a blur of small victories and crushing defeats. At school, she practiced harder than anyone else, determined to prove herself worthy. During breaks, she retreated to the Academy's vast library, losing herself in books about history, science, and philosophy. It was here she discovered something remarkable. Her hybrid mind processed information differently. Where others saw disjointed facts, she found connections. Patterns emerged in ancient texts. Hidden meanings revealed themselves in cryptic codes. Her teachers called it coincidence, but Lyra knew better. This was her gift, an ability to bridge gaps others couldn't see. Still, loneliness gnawed at her. Most nights, she gazed out her window at the swirling nebulae above, imagining what it might feel like to belong somewhere. Sometimes, she dreamed of leaving everything behind, escaping to a distant planet where no one knew her name. But then she'd remember her parents' sacrifices, the hope they placed in her hands. She owed it to them, and to herself, to keep trying. One evening, as Lyra wandered the Academy gardens, she stumbled upon Zenara, a fellow outcast. Zenara belonged to the Nereid race, aquatic beings who struggled to adapt to land-based environments. She sat alone near a fountain, her translucent fins shimmering faintly in the dim light. Though hesitant at first, the two girls struck up a conversation. Zinera spoke of feeling trapped between worlds, unable to fully embrace either her underwater heritage or the dry air of the academy. Lyra nodded, recognizing the ache in her words. For the first time, she realized she wasn't alone in her struggles. Their friendship blossomed quietly, built on shared experiences of exclusion. Together, they explored the edges of the academy grounds, finding solace in forgotten corners untouched by judgment. Zinera taught Lyra to listen to the subtle rhythms of water flowing through pipes, while Lyra introduced her to constellations visible only from certain vantage points. Slowly, they began carving out a space where they could simply be themselves. But peace never lasted long. Rumors spread among the students about their bond, painting it as unnatural. A human-alien hybrid consorting with another misfit. Mockery followed, sharper this time. Graffiti appeared on walls, crude drawings depicting Lyra and Zinera as freaks unworthy of respect. Still, they refused to let hatred break them. If anything, the attacks strengthened their resolve. They vowed to rise above the cruelty, clinging to the belief that someday they'd find acceptance, not because they changed, but because the world around them did. As Lyra drifted off to sleep that night, her thoughts turned to the future. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she felt a spark of determination burning inside her. Someday, she would show everyone that being different wasn't a flaw. It was a strength. Until then, she would endure, learning all she could and holding tight to the friendships that reminded her she wasn't truly alone. And so, amidst whispers of doubt and laughter meant to wound, Lyra Solon stood firm. She was a hybrid, yes, but she was also a dreamer, a fighter, and a beacon waiting to shine. Part 2. A test of worth. The Galactic Council's announcement came like a thunderclap, shaking the foundations of every species in the Alliance. The Concord Trials, a prestigious interstellar competition, would take place on Arindor Prime, a neutral planet renowned for its sprawling arenas and cutting-edge technology. Representatives from across the galaxy would gather to compete in tests of intellect, strength, diplomacy, and teamwork. For most civilizations, this was more than just a contest. It was an opportunity to prove their worth on a cosmic stage. Each victory brought glory not only to the individual competitor, but also to their entire species. When news of the trials reached Lyra Solon, she felt a mix of excitement and dread. As much as she admired the idea of uniting different races through friendly competition, she knew her chances of participating were slim. Who would choose someone like her? She wasn't fully human, nor was she accepted by the Valith elite. But fate has a way of surprising even the most unlikely candidates. It all began during a routine day of the spaceport near Earth's capital city. Lyra had been assisting Captain Elias Wren, a seasoned officer with decades of experience navigating galactic politics. He was gruff and no-nonsense, with scars crisscrossing his hands and a glare that could silence a room. Yet beneath his hardened exterior lay a sharp mind and a deep sense of loyalty. Over time, he'd grown fond of Lyra, not because of her heritage, but because of her relentless determination and quick thinking. That morning, chaos erupted when a malfunctioning cargo ship collided with a docking bay, sending debris spiraling into nearby vessels. Alarms blared, and panic spread among passengers and crew alike. Amidst the confusion, Lyra sprang into action. Her heightened senses allowed her to detect structural weaknesses before they became critical, guiding people away from collapsing sections of the station. When a young child became trapped under fallen wreckage, Lyra used her hybrid strength to lift the heavy metal beams, freeing the terrified boy moments before reinforcements arrived. Captain Wren watched silently from the sidelines, impressed by her composure under pressure. Later, as cleanup crews worked tirelessly to restore order, he approached her. "You've got guts," he said gruffly, though there was a flicker of admiration in his eyes. "And brains. Not many people could have handled that situation so well." Lyra shrugged modestly, brushing off the praise. "I just did what needed to be done." "Well," Wren replied, crossing his arms, What you did might make you Earth's best shot at the Concord trials. At first, Lyra thought he was joking. But as Wren explained, the selection process for Earth's representative had stalled due to disagreements among the council members. Some argued for choosing a decorated soldier, while others favored a brilliant scientist. Neither group could agree, leaving the decision unresolved until the last minute. That's when Wren proposed Lyra's name, not because she fit neatly into either category, but because her unique combination of traits made her stand out. She's adaptable, Wren argued during the heated debate. She thinks on her feet, works well with others, and isn't afraid to take risks. Those are exactly the qualities we need in the trials. After hours of deliberation, the council reluctantly agreed. Lyra was officially chosen as Earth's representative, a decision met with equal parts astonishment and skepticism. News outlets buzzed with speculation, and social media erupted with memes mocking her appointment. Memes depicting her as a clumsy hybrid incapable of competing against seasoned champions flooded the galaxy-wide networks. Even some humans questioned whether she was up to the task. What can a half-breed possibly achieve? One commenter wrote, echoing sentiments shared by many. But Lyra refused to let negativity dampen her spirit. If anything, it fueled her resolve. She knew this was her chance to prove herself, not just to the galaxy, but to herself. With Captain Wren as her mentor, she threw herself into training with unmatched dedication. Every day began before sunrise, with rigorous physical exercises designed to push her limits. Though smaller and less muscular than most competitors, Lyra compensated with agility and precision. She learned to harness her hybrid abilities, using her heightened reflexes to dodge simulated attacks and her intuitive connection to her surroundings to anticipate obstacles. Mental challenges proved equally demanding. Puzzles tested her problem-solving skills, while diplomatic scenarios required her to navigate tense negotiations between fictional alien factions. Here, too, Lyra excelled. Her hybrid nature gave her insight into multiple perspectives, allowing her to find common ground where others saw only conflict. Wren often marveled at how quickly she adapted to new situations. "You're unpredictable," he told her one evening after a particularly grueling session. "That's your greatest weapon." As the days turned into weeks, Lyra grew stronger, not just physically, but emotionally. She learned to embrace her differences instead of hiding them. During breaks, she practiced meditation techniques taught to her by Zanera, focusing on controlling the latent psychic energy within her. At night, she studied profiles of potential rivals, memorizing their strengths and weaknesses. One name stood out above all others: Kael Vorthis, a pure-blood Vaelith champion known for his arrogance and unparalleled skill. He had already declared victory in interviews, dismissing Lyra as unworthy of sharing the same arena. His words stung, but they also strengthened her determination. She vowed to show him, and everyone else, that she belonged. The final days before departure were a whirlwind of preparation. Lyra packed carefully, selecting gear tailored to her needs. Alongside standard equipment, she included small mementos from home: a photograph of her parents, a carved wooden figurine gifted by Zanara, and a journal filled with notes and sketches. These items served as reminders of why she was fighting, not for fame or glory, but for the hope that one day, hybrids like her wouldn't have to face such prejudice. On the eve of her journey, Captain Wren joined her on the observation deck overlooking Earth's skyline. Stars twinkled faintly in the distance, each one a beacon calling her forward. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Wren broke the silence. "Remember this," he said, his voice unusually soft. "Win or lose, you're already making history. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Tears pricked at the corners of Lyra's eyes, but she blinked them away. She nodded firmly, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Captain," she said, "for believing in me." The next morning, Lyra boarded the transport ship bound for Erindor Prime. As the engines roared to life and Earth faded into the distance, she gripped the armrests tightly, steeling herself for what lay ahead. Doubts lingered at the edges of her mind, whispers of doubt planted by years of ridicule. But louder than those doubts was a voice she'd come to trust, the voice inside her that whispered, "Asterisk, you are enough, asterisk." Little did she know, her arrival on Arindor Prime would ignite a chain reaction far beyond anything she, or anyone else, could have anticipated. Part 3. Trials begin. Arindor Prime was a world unlike any Lyra had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with iridescent hues, reflecting the light of 3 suns that bathed the planet in an eternal golden glow. Towering crystalline structures rose from the ground like jagged mountains, their surfaces pulsating faintly as if alive. The air carried a strange hum, a symphony of energy resonating through every corner of the planet. It was beautiful yet alien, a fitting backdrop for the Concord trials. As Lyra stepped off the transport ship alongside Captain Wren, she felt both awe and unease. The spa support buzzed with activity, filled with representatives from dozens of species. Strange languages echoed in the air, mingling with the clatter of mechanical equipment and the occasional roar of distant engines. Everywhere she looked, competitors prepared for the challenges ahead, some meditating quietly, others sparring fiercely, all determined to claim victory. Lyra's presence drew immediate attention. Whispers rippled through the crowd as onlookers recognized her hybrid features. Some stared openly, curiosity playing on their faces. Others sneered, clearly unimpressed by Earth's unconventional choice. Among them stood Cal Vorthis, the Veilith champion, his posture rigid and disdainful. His silver eyes locked onto Lyra, and he smirked, shaking his head slightly as if confirming to himself that she didn't belong here. Despite the weight of their gazes, Lyra kept her chin high. She reminded herself why she was here, not to win approval but to prove her worth. With Captain Wren at her side, she made her way to the registration area, where officials handed out holographic wristbands containing vital information about the trials. Each band glowed softly against her skin, a constant reminder of the competition looming ahead. The first trial took place deep within the verdant expanse, a dense jungle teeming with life and danger. Contestants were divided into teams of 4, each tasked with navigating the treacherous terrain, gathering resources, and completing objectives scattered throughout the forest. The goal was simple: survive long enough to reach the extraction point before time ran out. Failure meant elimination. Lyra found herself grouped with 3 unlikely allies: Zinara, who had been chosen as the Nereid representative; Torkin, a hulking warrior from the nomadic crag clans; and Sira, a diminutive but sharp-witted member of the insectoid auxiliary race. Though none of them had worked together before, they quickly realized cooperation would be key to survival. From the start, the jungle tested their limits. Thick vines tangled around their legs, slowing progress, while bioluminescent predators lurked in the shadows, their glowing eyes watching hungrily. The air was humid and heavy, making it hard to breathe, and sudden bursts of rain turned the ground into slippery mud. Many teams struggled to adapt, their frustration boiling over into arguments. But Lyra's team stayed calm, relying on each other's strengths. Zinara used her aquatic instincts to detect hidden water sources beneath the soil, ensuring they stayed hydrated despite the oppressive heat. Torkin's brute strength proved invaluable when clearing paths blocked by fallen trees or fending off attacks from hostile creatures. Sira scouted ahead, using her keen vision and ability to scale vertical surfaces, alerting the group to nearby dangers. And Lyra, she served as the glue holding them together. Her heightened intuition allowed her to sense subtle changes in the environment, shifts in wind direction, vibrations in the ground that hinted at impending threats. When a massive predator resembling a serpent slithered toward their camp one night, Lyra woke the others just in time. Together, they devised a plan. Torkin lured the creature away while Sira climbed a nearby tree to create a diversion. Meanwhile, Lyra and Zinara worked together to collapse part of the trail, trapping the beast and buying precious time to escape. But the jungle wasn't the only challenge. As tensions mounted among competing teams, alliances began to fracture. Some groups resorted to sabotage, stealing supplies or deliberately misleading rivals about the location of objectives. Lyra's team faced several such attempts, including one orchestrated by Kel's squad. They discovered false markers planted along their route, leading them astray and wasting valuable hours. Yet instead of succumbing to anger, Lyra encouraged her teammates to focus on solutions. "We can't control what they do," she said firmly, "but we can control how we respond." Her optimism inspired the others, strengthening their bond. Slowly but surely they pushed forward, overcoming obstacle after obstacle. By the third day they reached the final objective, retrieving a rare mineral buried deep within a cavern system. The entrance yawned wide, its jagged edges glistening with moisture. Inside, the air grew colder, and the sounds of dripping water echoed ominously. Strange fungal growths clung to the walls, emitting a faint green glow that illuminated their path. It was here disaster struck. A sudden tremor caused part of the ceiling to collapse, trapping several teams inside. Panic spread as calls for help reverberated through the tunnels. Lyra hesitated for only a moment before taking action. Ignoring the protests of her teammates, she rushed toward the trapped competitors, her hybrid agility allowing her to navigate the unstable terrain with ease. Using her strength and quick reflexes, she helped dig survivors free, risking injury as rocks continued to fall around her. When the dust settled, Lyra emerged battered but triumphant, leading a group of grateful competitors back to safety. Among them was Kale, whose earlier arrogance had vanished under the weight of near-death experience. He muttered a grudging thanks before stalking off, but Lyra barely noticed. Her focus remained on ensuring everyone made it out alive. By the end of the trial, Lyra's team placed second overall, narrowly beaten by Kel's squad. While disappointment lingered, there was no denying the significance of their achievement. Against all odds, they had proven themselves capable of working together, adapting to adversity, and prioritizing survival over selfish ambition. More importantly, Lyra had earned something far greater than points on a leaderboard: respect. News of her heroism during the cave rescue spread quickly, sparking debates across the galaxy. Spectators marveled at her selflessness, while critics scrambled to dismiss it as luck or coincidence. Even Kel couldn't ignore the growing admiration for the hybrid girl who refused to give up. For the first time, whispers of doubt crept into his mind, though he buried them beneath layers of pride and denial. Back at the central hub where competitors regrouped between trials, Lyra received messages of support from unexpected sources. Humans praised her resilience, Nereids celebrated her compassion, and even some Valeth admitted privately that her actions challenged their preconceptions. Though the road ahead remained uncertain, Lyra knew one thing for sure. She had taken her first step toward proving that being different wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. As she rested in preparation for the next trial, Lyra glanced at the stars visible through the transparent dome above. Somewhere beyond those twinkling lights lay countless possibilities, waiting to unfold. Whatever came next, she was ready. The Concord trials were not just about physical endurance or intellectual prowess. They were also a crucible for relationships. As the competition progressed, alliances began to form and dissolve among competitors. For Lyra Solon, this phase of the trials marked a turning point. Her earlier acts of courage and selflessness had earned her begrudging respect from some, but suspicion still lingered in the eyes of others. Yet amidst the chaos of rivalries and shifting dynamics, something unexpected happened. True friendships began to blossom. The fourth trial was designed to test teamwork and trust. Competitors were paired randomly and tasked with navigating a labyrinthine arena filled with traps, illusions, and puzzles. The goal was simple: to reach the exit together. But the path was anything but straightforward. Each pair needed to rely on their partner's strengths while compensating for their weaknesses. Failure meant disqualification for both participants. When the pairings were announced, Lyra found herself matched with Torkin, the hulking crag warrior she'd worked alongside in the jungle trial. At first glance, their partnership seemed doomed. Torkin towered over her, his massive frame covered in tribal tattoos that shimmered faintly under the arena lights. His species prized brute force above all else, and he often dismissed subtlety as weakness. Lyra, on the other hand, relied more on intuition and adaptability than sheer strength. As they entered the arena, Torkin grunted skeptically. "You're small," he said bluntly, eyeing her slender frame. "How will you keep up?" Lyra smiled wryly. "I'm faster than I look," she replied. "And smarter, too." Torkin chuckled, though there was no malice in it. "We'll see." The moment they stepped into the maze, the walls shifted ominously, rearranging themselves to create new paths and dead ends. Lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that played tricks on the mind. A holographic voice boomed across the arena, announcing the rules. Work together or fail alone. Their first challenge came quickly, a narrow bridge suspended over a pit of writhing mechanical tentacles. Torkin moved instinctively, gripping the edges of the bridge with ease and crossing without hesitation. But when Lyra attempted to follow, the structure swayed dangerously beneath her weight. Realizing the problem, Torkin reached back, offering his hand. For a brief moment, Lyra hesitated. His size made him intimidating, even if his intentions seemed genuine. Then she took his hand, allowing him to steady her as she crossed safely. "Not bad," Torkin admitted afterward, his tone softer now. "For someone so delicate." Lyra grinned. "Thanks, I think." Further into the maze, they encountered a series of pressure-sensitive tiles that triggered traps when stepped on incorrectly. Here, Lyra's hybrid instincts proved invaluable. She studied the patterns carefully, her sharp eyes catching subtle changes in color and texture that indicated safe paths. Guiding Torkin step by step, she led them through the treacherous section unscathed. By the time they emerged on the other side, Torkin's skepticism had transformed into admiration. "You have good eyes," he said simply, which, for a crag warrior, was high praise indeed. Their bond deepened as they faced increasingly complex challenges. In one room, they confronted an illusionary barrier that projected their deepest fears. For Torkin, it was the image of his clan abandoning him, leaving him isolated and unworthy. For Lyra, it was the memory of being ridiculed by her peers, their laughter echoing endlessly in her ears. Both froze initially, overwhelmed by the vividness of the projections. But then Lyra remembered Zinera's advice about focusing on reality rather than fear. Taking a deep breath, she reached out to Torkin. "It's not real," she said firmly. "Focus on my voice. We can get through this together." Her words broke the spell, snapping Torkin out of his trance. Together, they pushed forward, refusing to let the illusions control them. When they finally exited the room, Torkin placed a heavy hand on Lyra's shoulder. "You are strong," he said gruffly, "stronger than many warriors I know." By the end of the trial, their unlikely friendship had solidified. Though they hadn't won the challenge outright, finishing in third place felt like a victory. More importantly, Lyra had gained a steadfast ally in Torkin, whose loyalty once earned was unshakable. Elsewhere in the competition, another alliance formed between Lyra and Sira, the diminutive auxiliary strategist. During a puzzle-solving segment of the trial, teams were required to decipher ancient symbols etched into glowing panels. These symbols represented forgotten languages, each tied to a specific alien culture. Success depended on understanding the nuances of these scripts, a task that stumped even the most knowledgeable competitors. Sira approached Lyra during a break, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with curiosity. "You notice things others miss," she observed. "Your mind connects patterns differently." Lyra nodded modestly. "I guess I've always been good at seeing the bigger picture." Sira tilted her head thoughtfully. "Perhaps we should work together. Two minds are better than one." Their collaboration proved fruitful almost immediately. While Sira analyzed the technical aspects of the symbols, Lyra focused on how they interacted with one another. Together, they uncovered hidden meanings and solved riddles that left other teams baffled. Their combined efforts earned them bonus points, propelling their respective teams higher in the rankings. But beyond the practical benefits, their partnership fostered mutual respect. Sira admired Lyra's creativity and resilience, traits rarely valued in her own rigid society. And Lyra appreciated Sarah's precision and intelligence, qualities that complemented her own skill set perfectly. Meanwhile, tensions escalated between Lyra and Cale Vorthis, whose arrogance continued to alienate potential allies. During a high-stakes coordination challenge, Cale's refusal to listen to his teammates resulted in disaster. The task involved assembling a complex device using components scattered throughout the arena. Each piece required input from multiple team members, forcing them to communicate effectively. But Cale insisted on taking charge, dismissing suggestions from others as irrelevant. "Follow my lead," he barked, ignoring warnings that his approach would destabilize the structure. Sure enough, the device collapsed moments before completion, costing his team valuable points. Frustration boiled over as his teammates vented their anger, accusing him of sabotaging their chances. Watching from afar, Lyra couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. She recognized the same isolation in Cale that she had once felt, the desperate need to prove himself, coupled with an inability to connect with others. It didn't excuse his behavior, but it gave her insight into why he acted the way he did. Later that evening, as competitors gathered in the communal lounge to unwind, Cale sat alone, nursing a drink. Lyra hesitated before approaching him, unsure whether her presence would be welcome. Finally, she decided to take the risk. "We don't have to be enemies," she said quietly, sitting across from him. Cale glanced up, surprise flickering across his face. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone guarded. "I wanted to say." Lyra paused, choosing her words carefully. "I understand what it's like to feel like you don't belong. But shutting people out only makes it worse. You're stronger when you let others in." For a long moment, Cale said nothing. Then he sighed, running a hand through his shimmering hair. "You wouldn't understand," he muttered. "The expectations, the pressure. I might not fully understand," Lyra admitted. "But I do know that everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves, not just to others, but to themselves." Cale looked away, his expression unreadable. He didn't respond directly, but Lyra noticed a slight softening in his demeanor. Whether it signaled a change remained to be seen, but planting the seed of doubt in his rigid worldview was progress nonetheless. The fifth trial of the Concord trials introduced a dramatic shift in dynamics, a series of one-on-one combat arenas where competitors faced off against each other. Unlike previous challenges that tested teamwork and strategy, this round was raw and personal, pitting individuals against their rivals in direct confrontations. For many, it was the moment they had been waiting for. The chance to prove themselves as superior warriors, thinkers, or tacticians. For Lyra Solon, however, it represented something more profound. An opportunity to silence her critics once and for all. When the pairings were announced, gasps rippled through the crowd. Lyra's opponent, Cale Vorthis, the Violet champion whose disdain for her had become legendary. To spectators, it seemed like a mismatch. Cale, with his towering physique, razor-sharp reflexes, and years of elite training, versus Lyra, who appeared fragile by comparison. Social media erupted with memes mocking the matchup, labeling it David versus Goliath, but implying there was only one possible outcome. Even some humans whispered among themselves, wondering if Earth's representative would embarrass them further. But Lyra didn't flinch. As she prepared in the locker room, Captain Wren stood beside her, offering quiet encouragement. "Remember what we've practiced," he said firmly. "You don't need brute strength to win this fight. Use your head and your heart." Lyra nodded, taking slow, steady breaths to calm her nerves. She knew Cale would rely on his speed and power, attempting to overwhelm her early in the match. But she also knew her hybrid abilities gave her an edge, if she could harness them effectively. Closing her eyes, she focused on the lessons Inara had taught her about controlling her latent psychic energy. Her hands tingled faintly as she envisioned creating illusions, bending reality just enough to throw her opponent off balance. The arena itself was a spectacle, designed to amplify tension. A circular platform hovered above a glowing abyss, its edges lined with pulsating lights that shifted colors depending on the fighters' movements. Holographic screens displayed close-ups of the competitors' faces, capturing every beat of sweat, every flicker of emotion. As Lyra stepped onto the platform, the roar of the crowd washed over her like a tidal wave. She locked eyes with Kale, who wore a smug grin, confident in his impending victory. "Ready to lose, half-breed," he taunted, his voice carrying clearly through the speakers. Lyra smiled faintly, refusing to rise to the bait. "Let's see who loses first." The battle began with explosive intensity. Kale charged forward, moving faster than the eye could follow, his fists striking with devastating force. Lyra barely managed to dodge, rolling across the platform as his blows landed inches from her body. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the air, causing the audience to gasp audibly. For several tense minutes, she played defense, using her agility to evade his attacks while searching for an opening. But Kale's relentless assault left little room for error. One misstep sent her sprawling backward, landing hard on the metallic surface. Pain shot through her side, and blood trickled from a cut on her cheek. Spectators leaned forward in anticipation, certain the end was near. Even Captain Wren clenched his fists tightly, bracing for the worst. Yet Lyra refused to give up. As Cal closed in for the finishing blow, she closed her eyes briefly, focusing inward. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, she unleashed her latent psychic abilities. Illusions sprang to life around her, distorting the battlefield. To Kale, it appeared as though multiple versions of Lyra now surrounded him, each mirroring his movements perfectly. Disoriented, he hesitated, unsure which image was real. Seizing the moment, Lyra struck. With precise timing, she delivered a series of rapid kicks and strikes aimed at his weak points, joints, pressure points, and exposed areas of skin. Though physically weaker, her blows carried surprising force, amplified by her hybrid strength. Kale staggered back, momentarily stunned. Realizing he'd underestimated her, Kale abandoned subtlety and launched another furious attack. This time, Lyra countered not just with evasion, but with calculated counterattacks. Each move flowed seamlessly into the next, a dance of precision and creativity. Her hybrid nature allowed her to adapt instantly to his strategies, staying one step ahead. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the seemingly invincible Vylith champion struggled to regain control. Finally, after what felt like hours, Kale faltered. Exhaustion slowed his movements, and frustration clouded his judgment. Sensing her chance, Lyra executed a daring maneuver. Leaping high into the air, she twisted gracefully, landing behind him with perfect balance. Before he could react, she placed a firm hand on his shoulder, signaling surrender according to trial rules. For a heartbeat, the arena was utterly silent. Then, as realization dawned, cheers erupted from the stands. Spectators leaped to their feet, shouting Lyra's name. Even some Vylith supporters clapped reluctantly, acknowledging the skill and determination she had demonstrated. Kale stood frozen, disbelief etched across his face. Slowly, he turned to meet Lyra's gaze. There was no triumph in her expression, only quiet resolve. "This isn't about proving I'm better than you," she said softly, so only he could hear. "It's about showing we're stronger when we stop tearing each other down." Kale opened his mouth to respond but found no words. Instead, he bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect rarely seen among the proud Vylith. It was a small act, yet deeply significant. For the first time, he saw Lyra not as an inferior, but as someone worthy of admiration. The aftermath of the fight reverberated throughout the galaxy. News outlets scrambled to cover Lyra's stunning upset, replaying footage of her victory countless times. Memes mocking her earlier performance disappeared overnight, replaced by headlines declaring her a rising star. Humans celebrated her achievement, hailing her as a symbol of resilience and ingenuity. Even the Vailith Council issued a formal statement praising her sportsmanship, though their tone remained guarded. Backstage, Lyra received messages of support from unexpected sources. Torkin clasped her shoulder warmly, grinning broadly. "You fought like a true warrior," he said proudly. Sira approached next, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with admiration. "Your tactics were brilliant," she remarked. "A lesson in adaptability." Cinera arrived last, pulling Lyra into a tight embrace. "You made us proud," she whispered. "Not because you won, but because you showed everyone what it means to persevere." Despite the accolades, Lyra remained humble. She understood that her victory wasn't just hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had ever felt dismissed or underestimated. It was proof that being different wasn't a flaw. It was a source of strength. As she rested in preparation for the final trial, Lyra reflected on how far she'd come. From an outcast ridiculed by both humans and aliens to a champion inspiring hope across the galaxy, her journey had transformed not only her own life, but the lives of those around her. The road ahead still held challenges, but she faced them with newfound confidence. And somewhere deep within her, a spark ignited, a belief that perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy was ready to change ###Part 6, the final trial. The final trial of the Concord trials was unlike anything Lyra Solon, or any competitor, had ever faced. It wasn't a test of individual skill or strength. It was a challenge that required collaboration among all remaining contestants. Together, they would need to solve a crisis threatening not just the arena but the entire galaxy. An ancient machine buried beneath the trial grounds had activated unexpectedly, emitting unstable energy waves capable of destabilizing nearby star systems. If left unchecked, the machine's growing power would trigger catastrophic chain reactions, endangering billions of lives. As the competitors gathered in the central hub, their usual rivalries and tensions dissolved under the weight of the looming disaster. Holographic screens displayed real-time data about the machine's erratic behavior, along with maps showing its potential impact on surrounding planets. A robotic voice announced the mission parameters. Teams must work together to shut down the machine before time ran out. Failure meant elimination, not just from the trials, but from existence itself. Lyra felt a surge of determination as she listened to the briefing. This was more than a competition now. It was survival. She glanced around at her fellow competitors, many of whom she had clashed with earlier in the trials. Kale Vorthis stood stiffly, his expression unreadable but tinged with unease. Torkin exchanged worried glances with members of his clan, while Sira consulted rapidly with her Tylari teammates. Despite their differences, one thing united them all: fear of what might happen if they failed. From the start, Lyra emerged as a natural leader. Her hybrid nature allowed her to bridge gaps between species, translating complex ideas into terms everyone could understand. When arguments broke out over how to approach the problem, she stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We don't have time for this," she said, silencing the bickering crowd. "If we focus on our strengths instead of our weaknesses, we can stop this." Her words resonated with some, though others remained skeptical. Kale, in particular, bristled at her authority. "Why should we listen to you?" he demanded, crossing his arms defiantly. "You're no expert." Lyra met his gaze steadily. "Because I've proven I can bring people together, and right now, that's exactly what we need." Reluctantly, the group agreed to follow her lead. They divided into specialized teams based on their unique abilities. Engineers worked to analyze the machine's inner workings, strategists devised plans to stabilize its core, and warriors prepared to defend against automated drones guarding the structure. Lyra coordinated these efforts, ensuring communication flowed smoothly between groups. Her hybrid traits proved invaluable during the operation. In moments of chaos, When confusion threatened to derail progress, Lyra relied on her heightened intuition to guide decisions. For example, when conflicting theories arose about how to deactivate the machine, she suggested combining elements of both approaches, a compromise that ultimately proved successful. Her ability to mediate disputes earned her respect, even from former detractors like Kel, who began contributing ideas without his usual arrogance. As the teams ventured deeper into the underground facility housing the machine, danger intensified. Automated defenses sprang to life, firing beams of searing energy at intruders. Torkin and his crag warriors charged ahead, using their brute strength to disable turrets and clear paths. Meanwhile, Zanara and her Neurite allies used their aquatic instincts to detect hidden traps, warning others before they triggered deadly mechanisms. Lyra accompanied the engineering team, assisting them in deciphering cryptic symbols etched onto control panels. Her sharp eyes noticed patterns others missed, allowing them to bypass security protocols and gain access to critical systems. At one point, a malfunction caused part of the ceiling to collapse, separating the engineers from the rest of the group. Without hesitation, Lyra climbed through the wreckage, risking injury to reconnect the two halves of the team. Despite their combined efforts, the situation grew increasingly dire. The machine's instability worsened, sending tremors through the facility and causing equipment to malfunction. Time was running out, and panic began to creep in. That's when Lyra made a decision that shocked everyone. "We need someone to go inside the core," she announced, pointing to a glowing chamber at the heart of the machine. "It's too dangerous for multiple people, so I'll do it." Protests erupted immediately. "You can't," Torkin roared, stepping forward. "It's suicide." "It's the only way," Lyra replied firmly. "I'm smaller and faster than most of you. I can navigate the core safely and stabilize it before it's too late." Kale hesitated, then spoke up. "She's right," he admitted reluctantly. "Her reflexes are unmatched. Let her try." With heavy hearts, the others agreed. As Lyra prepared to enter the core, Captain Wren approached her, his face lined with worry. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. Lyra nodded, managing a small smile. "I've never been sure of anything." Inside the core, Lyra confronted a surreal environment, bathed in pulsating light. Strange shapes floated in the air, shifting and rearranging themselves as if alive. Energy crackled around her, creating static that made her hair stand on end. Every step forward was a gamble, as the floor seemed to dissolve beneath her feet only to reform seconds later. Using her hybrid abilities, Lyra focused on calming her mind, despite the overwhelming sensations. She reached out with her latent psychic energy, sensing the flow of power coursing through the machine. Slowly, she began manipulating it, redirecting unstable currents back towards stabilizing nodes. Her hands moved instinctively, guided by an unseen force within her. But the process took a toll. Pain radiated through her body as the machine resisted her efforts, its energy fighting against her presence. Memories flooded her mind, moments of ridicule, loneliness, and doubt, but also flashes of triumph, friendship, and hope. These memories fueled her resolve, pushing her to keep going even as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the core stabilized. The glowing chamber dimmed, and the tremors ceased. Lyra collapsed to her knees, breathing heavily but victorious. Cheers erupted outside as the others realized the crisis had been averted. When Lyra emerged from the core, weakened but alive, the entire arena erupted in celebration. Competitors hugged each other, tears streaming down their faces. Even Kel clasped her hand tightly, offering a rare smile of gratitude. For the first time, unity replaced rivalry, and hope replaced fear. The Galactic Council declared the Concord trials officially concluded, with Earth earning top honors thanks to Lyra's leadership. But more importantly, the event marked a turning point for interstellar relations. Inspired by Lyra's selflessness, movements advocating for greater inclusivity gained momentum. Species that once distrusted hybrids like her began reevaluating long-held biases, recognizing that diversity strengthened rather than weakened them. As Lyra returned to Earth, she carried not just accolades, but a renewed sense of purpose. Her journey had shown the galaxy that being different wasn't a flaw, it was a gift. And though challenges remained, her story reminded everyone that even the most unlikely individuals could spark change. The final chapter of Lyra Solan's tale was still unwritten, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never forget her name. Part 7. Legacy of Hope. When Lyra Solan returned to Earth, she was no longer the girl who had left weeks earlier, awkward, uncertain, and burdened by the weight of others' expectations. She carried herself differently now, her shoulders squared with confidence and her eyes reflecting a quiet strength that inspired those around her. The journey through the Concord trials had transformed her in ways she could never have imagined. What began as a test of individual worth had become a catalyst for change across the galaxy. The reception awaiting Lyra on Earth was overwhelming. Crowds gathered at spaceports and city squares, waving banners emblazoned with her image and chanting her name. News outlets broadcast live coverage of her arrival, replaying footage of her final moments inside the machine's core. For many humans, her victory wasn't just a triumph in a competition. It was a symbol of resilience, proving that humanity's adaptability and ingenuity could stand shoulder to shoulder with the most advanced species in the galaxy. But it wasn't just humans who celebrated her success. Across the stars, other species joined in recognizing her achievements. Messages poured in from every corner of the Alliance. Tributes from Nereid diplomats, Crag warriors, and even cautious commendations from Valeth officials. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like #HybridHero and #UnityThroughDiversity, showcasing artwork, poetry, and stories inspired by her journey. Overnight, Lyra became more than a competitor. She became a beacon of hope for marginalized groups everywhere. Among these messages, one stood out to Lyra, a holographic letter from Zenera. The Nereid representative wrote warmly about how Lyra's courage had reminded her of the importance of embracing differences. "You've shown us all that unity isn't about erasing what makes us unique," Zenera concluded. "It's about finding strength in those differences." Reading the words brought tears to Lyra's eyes. Throughout her life, she had struggled to belong, caught between worlds that refused to accept her fully. Now she realized that belonging didn't mean fitting into someone else's mold. It meant creating a space where everyone could thrive together. Despite the adulation, Lyra remained grounded. She understood that her victory alone wouldn't erase centuries of prejudice or dismantle deeply ingrained biases. Change would take time, effort, and unwavering commitment. Determined to make a difference, she threw herself into advocacy work, traveling across planets to speak at conferences, schools, and community gatherings. Her speeches were simple yet powerful, focusing on themes of inclusivity, collaboration, and self-worth. "We are stronger when we embrace our differences," she often said, her voice steady and sincere. Every species, every individual brings something valuable to the table. It's not about being perfect. It's about working together to create something greater than ourselves. Her message resonated deeply, especially among young hybrids like herself. Many reached out to share their own struggles, seeking advice or simply expressing gratitude for her example. Lyra listened patiently, offering encouragement and reminding them that they weren't alone. Slowly but surely, she began building a network of support, connecting individuals who had long felt isolated by their identities. One such connection came during a visit to an interstellar youth summit on Erindor Prime. There she met a group of hybrid teenagers experimenting with art as a form of expression. Their paintings depicted vibrant blends of human and alien features, celebrating the beauty of mixed heritage. Inspired by their creativity, Lyra collaborated with them to launch an exhibition titled *Bridging Worlds*, which toured major cities across the galaxy. The project sparked conversations about identity and acceptance, challenging societal norms and fostering understanding. Meanwhile, political shifts began taking shape within the Galactic Council. Influenced by Lyra's actions during the trials, several representatives proposed reforms aimed at promoting equality and representation. A new committee was formed to address the needs of hybrid communities, ensuring they had access to education, healthcare, and legal protections. Though progress was slow and met with resistance from traditionalists, the momentum continued to build. Even the Valith Council, notorious for its rigid caste system, showed signs of change. Some members publicly questioned whether their society's obsession with purity hindered innovation and growth. Debates erupted over Lyra's role as a hybrid champion, with younger generations advocating for greater flexibility in cultural practices. While older elites clung to tradition, cracks began to form in their once unshakable hierarchy. Kale Vorthis played a surprising part in this transformation. After the trials, he sought out Lyra privately, apologizing for his earlier arrogance. "I misjudged you," he admitted, his tone unusually humble. "And I see now that my people have much to learn from yours." Though initially skeptical, Lyra welcomed his sincerity, seeing it as an opportunity to foster dialogue between humans and Valith. Together, they co-authored a proposal to establish exchange programs between their respective academies, encouraging students to study each other's cultures and collaborate on scientific research. The initiative faced criticism from both sides, but ultimately gained approval after months of negotiation. As the first cohort of participants embarked on their journeys, Lyra couldn't help but feel proud of the seeds they had planted. Back on Earth, Lyra found solace in quieter moments, spending time with her parents and close friends. Her mother, Dr. Elena Solon, marveled at how far her daughter had come since those early days of uncertainty. "You always had the potential," Elena said one evening as they strolled through a park illuminated by sunset. "I just wish I could have shielded you from the pain." Lyra smiled softly. "The pain shaped me, Mom. Without it, I wouldn't be who I am today." Her father, Ambassador Callan Vorthis, echoed similar sentiments during a rare family dinner. "Your existence challenged everything my people believed in," he confessed. "But because of you, they're starting to question those beliefs. That's a legacy worth fighting for." As night fell, Lyra gazed up at the stars twinkling above. Each one represented countless possibilities, endless opportunities to bridge divides and inspire change. She thought back to the challenges she had faced, the ridicule, the loneliness, the moments of doubt, and realized they had all led her here, to this moment of clarity. She wasn't just a hybrid or a hero. She was a dreamer, a fighter, and a builder of bridges. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly hold obstacles, she knew she wasn't walking it alone. Together, with allies old and new, she would continue striving toward a future where no one had to feel like an outsider. Somewhere beyond the horizon, amidst the swirling nebula and distant galaxies, a new chapter waited to unfold, one filled with hope, unity, and endless potential. And Lyra Solon was ready to lead the way.